So, my presentation is titled the Three Keys to Your Insurance Agency Having a Successful AEP. Okay. For anybody that might not know me, I don't think there's that many of you on here that probably don't know who I am, but just in case, I want to give you a quick introduction. Okay. I am the owner and the operator of Everything Senior Insurance, which is a makeup of 5 insurance-based companies. Okay. This includes ESI as our flagship company, right? Our agency, formerly known as Christian Brindle Insurance Services. As an agent, I was a top producer in my own right on my own pen with 6 different insurance companies, and I mentor thousands of agents in different capacities all over the country. And I'm also the founder of the Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group, which is the fastest growing Facebook group for agents in the country. Okay. Let's get into the nitty gritty on this, okay? Why is this AEP so important? Well, let's dissect this a little bit. This AEP I have called one of the most potentially disruptive seasons that we're ever going to see, okay? There's estimates that suggest that over 1.5 million Medicare Advantage members will be losing their coverage for 2026. Now, since I have put this presentation together, there's been additional estimates that have come out that suggest that number could be a heck of a lot higher than that. It could be even closer to the 2 million mark, which is terrific, right? It's a terrific number from the standpoint of opportunity, right? Um, Not great for the members, but it opens up opportunities for you if this is happening in an area near you, which a lot of people it is happening. Okay. There's a couple of other things that we're noticing in terms of disruption. You're also noticing that for people that are keeping their plans, you might notice if you've looked at benefits for 2026 in areas near you that the benefits are changing rather rapidly and pretty dramatically, right? Um, and so plans that are staying intact, they're still changing pretty substantially, which might cause people that were on that plan previously for a certain reason to need to change the plan because the plan might not offer what they're on it originally anymore. And so point blank, there's a lot of people that are going to need to change for one reason or another, whether they're terminated or not, this upcoming AEP. And there's a couple of things that we believe that you guys need to get down in your businesses in order to really capture this opportunity to cast as wide of a net as possible. Okay. Benefit shifting, right? We talked about that just a second ago. Why is this happening? Let's talk about the why a little bit, because when you're talking with clients and when you're educating clients, it's important that you have some type of an explanation for them. Well, as we all know, starting January 1st of this year in 2025 was the beginning of the Inflation Reduction Act's $2,000 maximum out-of-pocket cap, which next year will be going up to $2,100. Okay. This had a domino effect far more than most people think in the industry thought that it would. And it makes sense, right? Anytime you have a situation where the current system, or the previous system, I should say, on prescription drug coverage when it comes to Medicare, was literally in place for over 20 years. The Medicare Part D Act was passed around 2003. It took effect 2005, AEP 2005. And so you literally had 20 years of the same system when it came to Medicare prescription drug coverage. Carriers had 20 years to figure out from a Medicare Advantage plan perspective what they can offer from an actuarial perspective and remain profitable while still covering prescriptions, right? They'd kind of gotten it down to a science. And then imagine in a way that all of this gets flipped on its head when they have to completely rethink how they cover Medicare prescription drug coverage built into their plans. This is incredibly important to keep in mind because I think a lot of agents felt like that there would be just kind of an overnight thing. The carriers would have everything figured out. the coverage would look like it's going to look, and we're just going to kind of go on with our lives. But all the smartest people that I've talked to in the industry about this over the past year has kind of all said the same thing. And that is that it's going to take some time for carriers to get the data that they need from an actuarial perspective to determine what they can offer, right? It doesn't make sense that it's just going to happen at a whim or right at January 1st, 2025. That's why you saw not only a very disruptive AEP last year, but you're also going to see a very disruptive AEP this year. Potentially, you might even have one or two additional disruptive AEPs after this year. This will probably take a couple of years before things stabilize and you get the real picture of what coverage is going to look like going forward with this new model. Remember, this is the way things are going to be in terms of the Medicare prescription drug plan model. It's not going back to the way it was before. And so carriers have to make adjustments. They have to make shifts. I talked a lot about this last year when carriers were making decisions in the middle of AEP to suppress certain plans in certain markets, to make certain plans non-commissionable in the middle of AEP, which I had never seen before. If any of you have been in the business longer than me, I've been in 11 years, maybe you had seen it prior. I've never seen that before in the middle of AEP. Those announcements get made. And then, of course, they kind of continued on into this year, right? There's going to be shifts, there's going to be disruption, but if you are properly prepared to execute and capitalize on the disruption, it can bode for tremendous opportunity for you. Okay. But it's important to understand why this is happening. Domino effect, right? Carriers are holding the bag for significantly more amounts of claim money than they ever had to before on prescription drugs. And that eats into profits, and then benefits need to adjust and shift around in other ways, right? And it affects all kinds of things. It affects if a plan can even be offered, hence canceled plans. It affects if it makes sense to have a provider network contracted in network. It affects maximum out of pockets. It affects medical copays. It affects the viability of ancillary benefits like dental, vision, and hearing in a plan, over-the-counter item benefits into a plan, etc. So understand the landscape that we're in right now, right? Understand the territory that we're in, and you're going to have a much better understanding that, yes, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, but right now is a time where, unlike any in our industry's history, or very few times, I should say, in our industry's history, we can capitalize on opportunity if we're prepared. So, how are you going to be prepared? Let's get into the three keys. What you can do. Okay, so the first thing is systems. Systems breed efficiency in your business. And hopefully you've had some systems that you've already put into place as of now, but I'm going to share with you some systems that we use internally that's going to make our AEP a heck of a lot more efficient and a heck of a lot more sustainable, right? We have a lot of members that are terminating on our own book of business that we have to deal with this year. We have plans in place that's going to allow us to capitalize on them, but in addition to that, we're still going to be able to capture a lot of new business, and our systems are a big part of that. What do I mean by that, right? There's tools that you can use in your business. Medicare Center is an obvious one, but if you're not an integrity, if you're not with an integrity hierarchy or integrity FMO, most FMOs will have tools like Sunfire, Connecture, CSG Actuarial, right? Tools that are going to allow you to quote and enroll with multiple carriers in one place. Most of us are aware of this, but go high level. If you have a go high level CRM, you have at your fingertips an incredibly powerful tool that can allow you to automate communications with your clients and also new business with leads. Getting in touch with people is difficult because you're trying to do it all manually and all by yourself. Getting in touch with people is so much more than just your physical ability to pick up the phone and dial a number. Getting in touch with people has so many different facets to it. What do I mean by that? Well, a tool like Go High Level can automate your communication in sending out texts and sending out emails. It's not the only system or CRM that can do this, but this is just an example. Ringless voicemail drops, right? Maybe you have a large number of clients on a certain plan, right? Maybe 3, 4, 500, maybe 1,000 clients on one plan for those of you that are seasoned. And you want to get a message out about what that plan looks like. Well, you can record a voicemail drop and drop it automatically on all their voicemails automatically, right? These are things that you have at your disposal to make it to where you're going to make your life just a little bit easier. Search and Save is another tool, right? Now, this is a tool that Medicare Center has as well, but some people like to control their own data. Some people don't want to put all their data in one place, and I am understanding of that. Search and Save is a tool that we've recently started using this year, that this will be our first AEP using it. And I am very excited about it. It's a CRM tool, but we're not using it as a CRM. It primarily is going to act as a tool where you can run prescription drug checks and doctor checks through it. And we've tested it. It is down to the exact penny as accurate as Medicare.gov. But the beautiful thing about it is so many of you are entering in new prescription drug comparisons on Medicare.gov all of the time. And you're doing it from scratch each and every year. What if you could just enter in those prescriptions and it's saved under the account for that client? And all it takes is a click of a button to rerun that prescription drug check. You verify that their prescriptions are still the same. Maybe they've added some new prescriptions. Maybe they have not taken another one. You make some changes in that way. But it is incredibly simple and easy from a click of a button to rerun your prescription drug checks. Tools like Sunfire have this kind of capability as well, but we found it just not to be as accurate. Whereas a tool like Search and Save, we found is exactly down to the penny as accurate as Medicare.gov. So imagine, if you will, Miss Betty, and we all have a Miss Betty, who takes 25 prescriptions. And you check her prescription drug plan each and every year, and you spend a lot of time taking a look at it for her. It's a very, very important big pain point for her, and she's at the top of your list of clients you're going to get with come October. Imagine for a second, you could have all their prescriptions preloaded into a system, and with a click of a button, you could see what her best options are going to be for the next year. That's saving time and that's efficiency. It's just an example, right? You need to find ways to not do as many things manually and save your time, because time is something that's finite and it's something that you don't have that much of when it comes to AEP, especially a busy one like this. Let's keep going. What other systems, right? Systems are not just apps or tools that you're going to use. They're processes that your business can use to function. The more that your business can be repeatable and duplicatable, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to bring other people in that have an easier time to plug into your business and execute on something just as well, if not better, than you would. The way that you're going to do that is by building out standard operating procedures for staff to build repeatable processes. This has been a transformative thing for us. Many of you know, Glenn Shelton, who you're going to hear from later on in the day. Him and I merged our businesses almost 2 years ago now. And one of the most transformative things that I would say that he brought to what we do at Everything Senior Insurance is standard operating procedures, systems, processes, amongst other things. He helped bring that into our business and helped develop a little bit of structure. And it helps us run like a much more efficient company. When we go through something that we don't have to go through very often, right? Maybe it's hiring somebody. Well, we hire a lot more people these days, but maybe it's something that we're going through every so often, but we're not going through it every day. Having a repeatable process that's documented allows us less time to have to reinvent the wheel and figure it out when we're going through it a second time. So How are you positioning your team members to be successful during AEP? Not just during AEP, but all year round, but especially during AEP. The way that you do that is by making it clear and having defined roles and standards for them. I once heard a quote, and I think it's very, I think it's very eloquent because I think it's so spot on and right on the money. The success you have with bringing in a team is not necessarily how how well they understand what you want them to do. It's how well they understand how you want them to do that thing. Let me kind of repeat that a little bit. How well your team is going to be successful is not how well they understand what you want them to do, but how well they understand the method and the way you want them to do that task. Systems and standard operating procedures make that possible. All right, let's talk about some retention, right? When it comes to AEP, especially a disruptive one, any of you that have a lot of clients, you definitely need to be focused on retention. It's not just about client acquisition, although we're going to get to that. You also want to keep your clients. What good is it if you come out and you write 300 new apps if you lose 150 or 200, right? You don't want to lose people at a large margin, but if you don't have your retention processes put into place, it's a very real possibility that you might lose more people than you'd like. So how do you actually go about retention in your business? Well, you have to understand first and foremost that everyone wants to get your clients they want to get to your clients before you do when it comes into AEP. Many of you know, all of you know, I'm sure, that you're not supposed to talk about benefits to clients before October 1st. But that being said, we all know that there's people out there that are calling your clients right now to talk about benefits before October 1st. I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm not saying that they're right to do that. But unfortunately, it happens. And it puts you at a very big disadvantage. My encouragement to you is follow the rules. Do not do any outreach that goes over benefits before October 1st. But what type of outreach could you do now that would put them at ease without breaking a rule? Well, there's all kinds of things you could be doing. What we do specifically is we send out communications to our clients. We actually send them out in August, but it's better now than later, right? If you haven't done this yet. And we put them at ease, right? Touch points are going to be what is going to be your best friend when it comes to client retention. Okay? Touch points that put your clients at ease that you've got this. Yes, I know that there's a lot of changes coming up. I know that, Steve in a call center called you up and said that your plan is going to hell in a handbasket next year and you're panicked about it before October 1st. I understand this. That being said, I've done a good job for you. I've done a good job for you over the years, and I promise that I will be getting back in touch with you and going over all of your options in the best capacity, just like I always have. Also, reminding them who you are. Understand this, right? We always like to remember the clients that know us well, that are our biggest fans. Those are the ones you think about often when you think about your clients. I'm sure you have a warm feeling about them. I certainly do when I'm talking about this. But what you got to also think about is how many clients do not come to mind for you that have a hard time remembering who you are after you wrote their plan. They forget your name. They just remember you as that person that wrote my plan up, right? The biggest power of touch points is also keeping yourself relevant and top of mind when it comes to your clients during AEP. Because if you're relevant and top of mind, if you're the person they think of and they think of your name and most importantly, remember your name when it comes to their Medicare health plan, they're going to be far less likely to allow another person to call them up or come to their house and change their plan before you've had a chance to get to them. Touch points, branded touch points, reassuring touch points. We do it a multitude of different ways. Mail, text, email. multitude of different ways to touch base with people. Um, Now, I'll kind of walk through a little bit of our process of our retention rate. I've talked about this before. From 2024 to 2025, we have accomplished a 97.5% client retention rate. That includes death, by the way. So if you factor in death and mortality, that means we're losing very, very little people to other agents and call centers. When you look at that, and now that's not always going to be the case every single year, right? From basically this year, effective dates to now, we did an updated check recently and we were closer to about 95, 96%. But the fact remains the industry standards of retention in our business are probably somewhere between 85 to 90%. Industry standards, if you just do the bare minimum. But if you want to have a 95% retention rate or better, like we have historically, the best way you're going to do it is by putting together a simple process. So what do? Again, touch points are a big part of it. We send out a letter during AEP or before AEP, and we send a different one to our MedSup clients than we do our Medicare Advantage clients. Both letters, though, are saying the same thing for the most part. The Medicare Advantage clients are saying, listen up. Your plan is going to be changing. Open enrollment is coming. You might be hearing from people. We will be getting in touch with you the first week of October. The reason why we do this is because we can't talk about benefits before then. And we also want to assure them and reassure them that we're looking out for their best interests and we're going to get in touch with them as soon as we're allowed to do so. The MedSup clients are saying, your MedSup policy, it's not changing. Regardless of any information you hear, regardless of any advertising or marketing that you hear about, your Medicare supplement policy is not changing for the new year. It's guaranteed renewable. The benefits never change, but your prescription drug plan might be changing. We'll be getting in touch with you, right? We also email blast that out. Then we have plan-specific email communications that we email blast out to those specific clients, including their ANOCs in the emails that go out on October 1st. This automated communication allows us to reassure some of our clients. And for some of our clients, they look through the information and they feel confident and good about it going into the new year, right? We don't have to physically talk to every single person. When you have a lot of clients too, you also have to keep in mind that you can't meet with everybody. If you're still that agent that drives all over the place and you drive to everybody's house and you sit down at the kitchen table to do an AEP review with your client on their drug plan and all they're taking is omeprazole and levothyroxine, and they're on a $0 premium PDP for next year, for example, you're not going to get to everybody. And even if you do, if you have a large book, you're not going to have any time for new business. So efficiency is going to be your best friend when it comes to AEP. Talked about this already, variation in touch points, efficiency, right? Efficiency in your touch points. What our model is at this point in time at ESI is we try to do every communication we can possible over the phone. Why? Because those phone calls are typically going to be more efficient. We don't have to leave our office, and they're oftentimes going to be more effective and efficient communications. Think about times, for any of you that have ever gone to houses, that you sit down with somebody and somebody wants to show you their spoon rack. Has anybody ever had this experience, right? They're like, and this one I got from Lake Tahoe. It was 1987. And, you spend 25 minutes talking about their spoon rack. You got another appointment to go to. You're not going to get caught up in a spoon rack conversation over the phone. Most likely. I've never seen it happen. Maybe one of you has. But it's going to be a typically more productive conversation, right? Not only do you save the windshield time, it's going to be a faster conversation oftentimes. Now, people that do want to meet with us in person, if they're in with usually a 25 to 30 mile radius of our office, we do have an office. We do allow them to come in and make appointments with our agents and things like that. But that's our model. Face-to-face is in the office. everything else over the phone, and it's going to help with getting in touch with people. Before I go into acquisition, actually, there is one more point I wanted to make on the retention part of this, and that is you yourself do not have to have every single communication during AEP with your clients by yourself, you as the agent. Having other people in your business that are administrative staff can help take that burden off of you. Sometimes you feel like you're the only person that they can talk to, right? Sometimes you feel like they are only going to talk to you. Everybody thinks that. Everybody is wrong that goes through the process of staffing their business. I'm sorry to say. But once you understand that you need to do the most important aspects of this, you need to do explaining the benefits of a new plan they're going to get. You need to do the enrollment process, obviously, right? But when it comes to collecting prescriptions, for example, maybe you have a tool like Retire Flow. Shout out to our friend Dalton Miller, that can collect people's prescription drug information on a form. Maybe you have an assistant gathering that information for you. Regardless of how you're doing it, you shouldn't be spending 15, 20 minutes of your time writing that down or taking those notes down from that client if you can help it. If it's in your power, you got to be thinking outside of the box in terms of how can I use my time the most efficiently and how can I use the majority of my time on capturing new business or writing policies for clients of mine that need to change. And when you think this way, your whole world changes. I've heard Glenn say many times, and I'll kind of quote him on this. I hope he's not going to say it later. But then again, even if he does, there's a lot of time from now until then to when he presents. You guys probably will forget it by then. That when you call a doctor's office, this is a good way to think about it, right? When you go to the doctor, I don't know about you guys, but when I go to a doctor, when I go to my doctor, there's a lot of things that's happening that the medical staff is getting done without that doctor ever being involved. So like, for example, me calling up and scheduling my appointment, the doctor isn't answering the phone. The doctor isn't setting my appointment for me. When I do come to the appointment, the doctor's not checking me in. When I go into the medical room, the doctor is not usually the one that's coming in and talking to me at first. Usually a medical assistant or a nurse practitioner, someone like that, a nurse or somebody is going to come in and talk to me about my situation and get some information. And then the doctor comes in and does the important part. Because doctors understand their time is limited and their time is valuable. Run your business like a doctor. And you'll be able to get way more done during AEP and you'll be able to capture a lot more business. You'll be able to retain a lot of your clients at the same time. Acquisition, okay? Let's talk about acquisition. Well, how do you get lots of clients during AEP? Well, there's a couple of things, right? First off, you need lead flow. I've said this many, many times. You need enough leads. An old tactic of mine has always been do the math on how many leads you need. What I mean by this is I've talked to agents every single year where they're like, I want to write 100 apps during AEP, or I want to write 200 apps during AEP of new business. And I'm like, okay, great. How are you getting leads? I don't know. How much are you going to spend on leads or marketing? I don't know. Do you know how many leads you need to write that many people? No. And you can't just rely on referrals in order to do this, right? You need some type of strategic plan in place to allow you to have enough conversations to have that much business produced. It's always a math game at the end of the day. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you can buy leads from, I don't know, Lead Heroes, shameless plug, or maybe not Lead Heroes. Maybe you're running your own ads, you're running Facebook ads, you're generating leads that way, whatever the case might be. But let's say on those leads, you track your closing percentage throughout the year, hopefully you have, and you close about 20% of the leads that you purchase, which is it's very good. It's going to be a fantastic ROI on most lead sources. Now, everybody, when I say that, they're like, well, I close 95% of my leads, and they're talking about referrals and things like that. I mean, I'm not talking about that. You can't scale referrals, guys. You take them, you want them, you try to get them, but you can't scale a business based on referrals. So if you're talking about paid leads, paid marketing, let's say you're closing 20% of them. So in that math, right? If I want to get 100 new clients during AEP, I'm looking at it from the perspective that I need 500 leads. Now, maybe I'll get some of those from referrals. Maybe I'll get some of those from some other sources, but I have the mentality that I need 500 leads that I can work. Because so many agents set high goals for themselves during AEP, but they never figure out how they're going to have that many conversations. And then they fall short and they never know why. That's typically the reason why. You also need a diversity of lead flow. Look at that face and that shining head. He's turning more into me as time goes on. You guys need a diversity of leads, not just lead heroes, right? This slide is supposed to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but you do need a diversity of leads. Because if you have one very strong lead source, as I've heard it called before, a honey hole, but something changes, right? Something changes with the lead source. Something changes with a trend. Maybe you're generating leads on an advertising platform like Facebook or Google, and there's a change in the algorithm that happens just like that. And it completely shifts the effectiveness of your current strategy, and you need some time to kind of rethink it and revamp it. What you have is you put all your eggs in one basket. And anytime you put all your eggs in one basket, you're asking for trouble. Having a diversity of leads is going to be your best friend. I've seen it time and time again. People always ask me, how many types of lead sources should I get? Well, it's a little tough to say, but I always say you probably want to shoot for 3 to 5. 3 to 5 quality lead sources. Now, maybe one of those lead sources is a strong referral program you've built up. A lot of you guys have done a tremendous job of building up referral partners and building up a network of referrals that come in for you. And that's terrific. We've done the same. But I would count that as one lead source. Some people will have 5 different referral partners and they'll count that as 5 different lead sources. I'm not going to. I'm going to count that as one lead source, regardless of the strength of it or not. So remember, you want a diversity of lead flow. And if you have a diversity of lead flow, you're going to be prepared for anything. Guys, you want to work smarter, not harder. Automate every single thing that you can, as much as you can. Automation is going to make your life just so much easier. What are some little things that you're doing right now that you're maybe doing by hand, or maybe even one of your team members is doing by hand, that you can get out of? The biggest one that I usually get a lot of flack from when it comes to from agents is handwriting cards and sending cards. In 2025, almost 2026, there's almost no good reason to handwrite a card. I'm sorry. I really do believe that. With all of the tools that you have available right now, we use a platform. I'll just give you this little nugget here. We use a platform called thanks.io. And we have integrated automations built out that produce customized with the person's name, Stephanie, thank you so much for your business, right? We send thank you cards, birthday cards, all different other types of cards. They're branded for us. They appear handwritten, and they're just as effective as any handwritten cards we ever used before, but they save us a lot of time. They're automatic. I forget about them sometimes. I'm a client of our agency. Anytime my birthday comes around, I get one in the mail and I'm like, what is this again? And I open it up and I forget it's coming every year, like clockwork. That's just one example. What are some things that you do on a day-to-day basis that are probably unnecessary, something that you could automate through some different type of capacity? Automation gives you your time back, and you need your time back. A lot of you, it's not an effort thing when it comes to acquiring a lot of new clients. A lot of you, it's that you just don't have enough time in the day. But that's because your time is allotted towards things that it shouldn't be, oftentimes. So people have asked me before, how can I really tell where my time is going? How can I tell what I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing? Well, it's simple to me. Keep a log. Let's try it this week if this is you, if this is something you're struggling with. Keep a log of everything you do during the week on a day-to-day basis. On Monday, I personally did this. Anything you personally worked on, you spent time on. If it's checking emails, put down checking emails. Whatever it might be. But on Monday, I did this, this, and this. On Tuesday, I did this, and this. And if you can, also log how much time went in to those various things as well. This is a hack that was a game changer for me. And then looking back on those things, you might be amazed at how much time is going towards something that if I asked you if it was productive or not, you'd probably say absolutely not. And that's how you find ways to automate things that you can automate. There's some things you're doing that you probably should just completely eliminate. There's other things that you might want to delegate, right? Another thing I'll take from my partner, Glenn Shelton, right? Um, Eliminate, automate, delegate. This is how you get your time back. And getting your time back is going to be pivotal if you want to write a lot of new business coming into AEP. Before I wrap up my presentation, and we bring up our next speaker, which I'll give you guys a little bit of a teaser, is our friends over at Humana. I'm super excited to get to hear from them, and they're going to be talking about their Medicare supplement portfolio. They're going to be talking about Medicare Advantage changes, PDP. There's going to be a lot of great things that they're going to be going through, so I'm super excited to hear from them. But before I do that, to kind of close out my presentation, I have a extremely exciting announcement to make for you guys here today. And that is that for the first time in several years, my new book is now available. It just went live on paperback version yesterday. It is called Seven Figure Insurance Agency: How the Best Agencies Dominate. And so the reason why we kind of picked this presentation for me was because we thought that it went very nicely with the theme of this book. And the book's theme is exactly that, right? It's not about how to be a great agent necessarily. I've written books about that before. If you haven't checked out any of my other books, my first book is called How to Be a Six-Figure Medicare Agent, which is very, very popular. A lot of you probably have it. My second book for agents is called Superstar. Both are about how to be a top-notch sales producer on your own pen. But what wasn't out there in terms of a book was how you actually build an insurance agency. How do you build something that is bigger than just you, that is multifaceted, that has a lot more going on than just your own efforts on a day-to-day basis? And that's why we built out the presentation to kind of mirror the tactics of an insurance agency. So if you enjoyed the presentation that I made here today, you might enjoy Seven Figure Insurance Agency, which is available, like I said, as of today for the first time ever on paperback. It's a brand new book. If you guys enjoyed my presentation, we would love for you to be able to pick up a copy of it. And I think you're going to like it. I put a lot of work into it. I've been working on it for over a year. And I put a lot of love into this book. And I mean, my team is going to drop a link to it on Amazon in the chat in the Zoom meeting here today. So check that out, guys, while you can. And make sure to pick up a copy of Seven Figure Insurance Agency. Be one of the first people to hold the paperback copy. And I think you're going to like it. All right, guys. With that being said, that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. And I hope this was just incredibly beneficial.